This is, let me take you back to 2000 BC. Circa. Abraham has come from Mesopotamia because of a promise. He's living in Hebron. Has a voice that says, Abraham, take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom you love, to the land of Moriah, and offer him there on the hill that I shall show you. So, Abraham rebelled. He just comes from Dornation Abbey. Abraham comes up through the Kidron Valley. This valley here. Remember, there's the only thing that's here is this this mess of houses right here. Most important where those terrace walls were, and now you can see a little bit more above the wall, above that terrace. There's like a fortification type thing made of small stones. That's the ancient Canaanite site. Abraham comes up the Kidron Valley and then goes up, and there's the episode on Mount Moriah, which is where the Dome of the Rock is. Where I would say it this way, where Abraham gains the rep. See, we hear the story of Abraham in an anachronistic way. We say, well, how in the world could a father sacrifice his son? Well, at least in the Canaanite world, this was par for the course. This is what the gods required. You sacrifice the firstborn to gain further fertility. I say it this way. The Akedah, that's the Christians say the sacrifice of Isaac. Well, of course, he wasn't sacrificed. The Jews called it the Akedah, which means binding. The binding of Isaac. So Isaac is bound, but at Moriah, which is where the golden dome is, Dome of the Rock, Abraham gains the revelation that God does not require. He puts down the knife. So that if Abraham is the father of monotheism, we also might think of him as the father of the abolition of human sacrifice. 1,000 years go by. Oh, and by the way, there was a priest lived up in here named Melchizedek. His name means King of Righteousness, and he was the priestly king of Salem. And after the Battle of the Kings, which was up here, Abraham is returning, and Melchizedek comes and offers bread and wine, and Abraham gives him a tithe of all. 1,000 years go by. We now have the nascent kingdom of Israel. Solomon's failed. He's been killed on the mountains of Gilboa that we drove by. David becomes the king of Judah, one tribe, for 7 years, and then finally all the 11 tribes said, okay, let's make David the king of all 12 tribes. David chooses as his capital a place that is right on the border of Judah and Benjamin and the northern tribes. So it's a little bit, District of Columbia situation here. And he chooses Jerusalem, the Jebusite city. He comes and he conquers it, he takes it. He develops his city, which is just this house. They kind of, and they kind of blend together, but just this area in here, these houses. And he builds his house there, he lives there. This is where, he reigns from. The whole episode with Bathsheba and all that happens here. And then, late in life, he gets the idea to build a temple. But God says, no, you can't build it because you're a man of violence and war. But a peaceable will build. Now, is that Shlomo, Solomon, which means Shlomo means peaceful? Or is that really referring to the true son of David, who is the true Prince of Peace that will build the true temple? Well, so David goes up here and buys the threshing floor of Ornan. And then in the time of Solomon, the temple is built. In 587 BC, the whole thing is destroyed by the armies of Nebuchadnezzar, and the people are carried off captive into forced exile in Babylon. A couple of generations later, they begin to return. You have the whole episode with Nehemiah and Ezra. Then you have, centuries later, you have Herod. So let's jump all the way up to the time of Jesus. In the time of Jesus, the walls here on the east side are what we see now. The walls on the north side that we just walked along half of them this morning. That's where they are. There's walls on the west. They're more or less the same. The walls on the south are very wrong. See the walls are coming down here? Up there at the corner, up there in the southwest corner, is where the Palace of Caiaphas was. So the upper room, see Dormation Abbey, where you're hearing the bells from, that's the upper city of the first century of Jerusalem. And up there is the Palace of Herod, up there is the House of Caiaphas, up there is the upper room. It's the wealthy area. They confused the palace walls of Herod for the city walls. The city walls go all the way down into that deepest valley, which is where the pool of Siloam is. So you see how all of that would have been inside the city walls in the time of Jesus. It's outside now, but in the time of Jesus, it was because they messed up. You see the temple platform, and see there's a group of people on some steps over there. Those are the southern steps. Those are the main entrance up into the temple. Down below are mikvahs, where people would ceremonially bathe. And then you would go up those steps to enter into the temple. Some of those steps, some of them have been redone, some of them are from the first century. Over there is where you walk literally in the footsteps of Jesus. You walked up those steps, there's just no doubt.
Oh, wow.
You see the Dome of the Rock, that's where the temple was. You can see, as we look at it, it looks like it's moving about 10 o'clock from the temple. There's another structure with two gray domes up the hill. You see that? Everybody see that? That's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It's one contending site for Calvary and also the Golden Tomb. The other one, how to turn it now? Well, it's in amongst those tall cypress trees or whatever they are over there. It's actually the high point of it. 777 meters above sea level. Also, okay, see that large minaret over there, just to the north of Dome of the Rock? Remember leaving the temple now?
Yeah.
That's where the Antonia Fortress was. That's what would have been Pilate's headquarters. And so the Via Dolorosa goes from there either to there or over to those one or the other. That's where Jesus was tried before Pilate. And then again, I point out that you see the entrance into the city. The gold, and there was a bridge that we crossed. Now, have a seat. Just take a seat. Let me talk.